The Galactic Council has faced predators that shatter armies, storms that erase cities, and worlds that try to kill every living thing that sets foot on them. But the Grothack of Vera 9 is different. A flying, acid-spitting apex predator from a crimson-leafed Deathworld, it has begun hunting near an emerging civilization, threatening their survival. The Council sends its most elite hunters, wolf-like pack tacticians, towering reptilian juggernauts, and, for reasons nobody understands, a single human with a backpack and a smile. Luther, the Council envoy overseeing the mission, expects an efficient, if brutal, elimination. What he gets is something far stranger, and far more dangerous. Because humans don't always kill what they hunt. Sometimes, they make it love them. And in a galaxy that thinks strength comes only from teeth and claws, one man is about to prove that the most dangerous weapon of all, is trust. The descent into Vera 9 was slow, deliberate, and full of dread. Luther pressed his long green fingers against the viewport as the shuttle's landing strut sank into the crimson loam. The forest surrounding them swayed under a copper-tinged sky, each blood-red leaf trembling as though the planet itself was holding its breath. Beneath his formal council robes, the fine scales of his skin itched. His instincts told him what the reports already had: this was perfect hunting ground for something large enough to eat the shuttle. All systems safe, the pilot reported, the council's 16-pointed star glinting on his comm badge. Luther exhaled and forced authority into his voice. Begin disembarking procedures. Briefing in 30 minutes. As per protocol, he stepped out first. The filtered sunlight through the canopy turned the ground into a shifting patchwork of red and shadow. It was beautiful in a predatory way, the kind of beauty that came with venom in its veins. Behind him came the hunters. First were the Furic, 8 wolf-like bipeds with fur in shades of gray, each one moving in uncanny synchrony. Their leader, Igar, sniffed the air, amber eyes narrowing. The scent is strong, he growled, voice deep enough to vibrate Luther's ribcage. Many kills. It is close. Then came the Goran mercenaries, towering reptilian warriors with tusks, scarred hides, and bony plates along their spines. Their leader, Herrick, surveyed the dense foliage with visible distaste. Too much cover. Too many places to hide, he rumbled. We burn the undergrowth. Luther's jaw tightened. Council protocol forbids, but before the argument could spark, the last hunter stepped off the ramp. Human. Elias Carter looked fragile. No claws, no armor, no natural defenses. Just a single rifle slung across his back, strange binoculars hanging from his neck, and a worn backpack over one shoulder. He moved with an easy stride, as if this was a park stroll rather than a mission on one of the galaxy's most hostile worlds. Luther's stomach tightened. The Council's decision to invite a human baffled him. Humans were known as traders, explorers, sometimes scientists, not apex hunters. And yet here one stood, smiling faintly at the crimson canopy. We will see how long that lasts, Luther thought grimly. The briefing chamber was tense from the moment the doors closed. A hollow display hovered above the central table, a flying reptilian beast with a wingspan wider than a council corvette, acid dripping from fangs as long as Luther's forearm. Its eyes, even in frozen image, glowed with a cruel intelligence. This is the Grothack, Luther began. It has begun hunting dangerously close to the native villages. The Council's directive is clear: eliminate the threat. Igar bared his serrated teeth in a grin. One beast. We will bring its skull home. Herrick gave a low snort. We drop explosives on its nest. Efficient. Certain. Collateral damage to the ecosystem will not be. Luther stopped. Elias was leaning forward, elbows on the table, studying the hollow with quiet intensity. Questions? Elias's voice was calm. Has anyone analyzed the composition of its acid? The room stilled. Luther blinked. No. Research teams evacuated after the first attack. The human just nodded and wrote something in a small paper notebook, paper, of all things, before leaning back, expression unreadable. After the briefing, the cargo bay became a theater of ego. The Furyk loaded precision traps and sent markers, moving like one organism. The Goran hauled out massive weaponry with enough firepower to level a hill. Elias knelt alone in a corner, unpacking palm-sized drones from his backpack, calibrating them one by one. Agar padded over, voice full of mockery. "Souvenirs to remember your failure?" Elias smiled faintly. "Eyes and ears. You know, drones." "A real hunter uses his own senses," one of the Furyk growled. "A real hunter," Elias replied, still calibrating, "uses whatever works." By midday, the hunting parties disappeared into the forest. The Furyk moved silently, vanishing into the shadows. The Goran crashed forward like living tanks, firing into the air every so often. Elias did neither. He set up a small camp at the tree line, launched 3 drones into the sky, and reclined in a folding chair, monitoring a small screen. "You aren't tracking?" Lutter asked, incredulous. "I am," Elias replied without looking up. "Just not on foot." He reached into his pack, pulled out a packet of brightly colored candies, and popped one into his mouth. "Gummy bear?" Lutter declined. 3 days later, the hunters returned, except for Elias. The cargo bay was a storm of arguments before Lutter even entered. Agar and Herrick stood nose to chest, voices raised, accusing each other of flawed strategies. Lutter raised his voice over the din. "Has anyone seen the human?" "Likely already eaten," Agar said with a dismissive flick of his tail. Before Lutter could respond, the floor shuddered beneath them. A deep, rhythmic thudding, like the heartbeat of something enormous, echoed through the hull. The hunters froze, weapons snapping into ready positions. The cargo bay doors began to open. Crimson light spilled in. And there, filling the frame of the doorway, was the Grothack. Its wings were half unfurled, blocking out the sun. Acid steamed from between its fangs. Every instinct in Lutter screamed to run. And then he saw the rider. Elias Carter sat astride the beast, one hand raised in a cheerful wave. The Grothack's talons scraped the metal ramp with an ear-splitting screech. Its eyes, huge, amber, and predatory, swept over the cargo bay. Hunters who had faced apex predators on dozens of worlds stood frozen. Elias slid down from its scaled shoulder as casually as a man stepping off a porch. "Everyone," he announced, patting the beast's jaw, "this is Koro. Turns out he's friendlier than he looks." The Grothack let out a low, rolling rumble. The sound should have been a warning. Instead, it felt disturbingly pleased. Elias reached into a pouch, tossed something small into the air. The monster snapped it up with impossible speed. Lutter's brain took a moment to process it. "Candy. You," Lutter's voice came out higher than he intended. "You tamed it?" Elias shrugged. "Not tamed. We came to an understanding. He likes gummy bears. And jerky." Agar's ears flattened. "You mock the hunt." Herrick stepped forward, his massive frame casting a shadow over the human. "The council ordered the threat eliminated, not kept as a pet." "The threat is eliminated," Elias countered, tone suddenly cool. "Koros agreed not to hunt near the villages. We've set new boundaries." The Goran leader's tusks clicked in disgust. "Beasts do not make agreements." "You've just never asked," Elias replied. The tension in the bay thickened. Agar's pack shifted uneasily, eyes darting between the Grothack and its rider. The Goran mercenaries began to fan out, hands near their weapons. Herrick's voice dropped to a growl. "You've stolen our contract. And made a fool of us." Elias's gaze sharpened. "You want to test him?" It was unclear whether "him" meant the human or the Grothack. A Goran mercenary made the decision for everyone. The weapon's hum was the only warning before a bolt of plasma lanced toward Elias. The Grothack moved like lightning. One wing snapped forward, the membrane absorbing the blast, smoke curling from the impact. The roar that followed was not just sound, it was force. Lutter staggered, his hearing ringing. The hunters around him flinched as the Grothack surged forward. Acid sprayed. The mercenary who'd fired screamed as his armor dissolved in seconds, green blood hissing where it hit the deck. "Hold your fire!" Lutter shouted, but his voice was a whisper against the chaos. Herrick bellowed orders. More weapons came up. Elias vaulted onto Koro's back in a single, practiced movement. "Down," he barked, at the Grothack. The beast crouched, wings spreading to their full span. The downdraft knocked smaller crates skidding. 2 more plasma shots sizzled past. "Last warning!" Elias shouted. The only response was the crack of another weapon. The Grothack lunged. Its tail swept sideways with the force of a falling tree, catching 2 mercenaries and hurling them against the bulkhead. The sound of breaking bones was swallowed by the shriek of torn metal as the beast's claws scored deep into the deck. Igar's pack didn't move to help. They stood at the periphery, watching with an expression Lutter couldn't name. Not fear. Not pity. Something closer to respect. Herrick charged. The Grothack met him head-on. The Goran's massive weapon swung in an arc, but Koro twisted, jaws snapping shut on the armored forearm. There was a crunch, a muffled roar of pain, and Herrick was wrenched sideways. "Enough!" Lutter cried again, but no one listened. Elias leaned forward, murmuring something in a low tone. At once, the Grothack released its grip and stepped back, the acid on its fangs still sizzling where it had touched armor. The bay fell into a tense silence. Half the Goran force lay on the deck, groaning or still. The rest kept their weapons up but didn't fire. Elias slid off Koro again, dusted himself off, and looked straight at Lutter. "You've got your result. The threat is gone. No more attacks on the villages." Lutter's throat felt dry. "You expect the council to approve this?" "I expect them to notice it works," Elias said simply. He glanced at the Furyk. "And I expect at least one species here understands the value of not killing everything you fear." Igar inclined his head, just slightly. "Among my people, one who can ride the hunter is greater than one who can kill it." Herrick spat on the deck. "Among mine, the one who kills the rider is greater still." The Grothack's head swung toward him. Whatever Herrick was about to say next died in his throat. The following hours were a blur. Lutter logged the mission outcome with as much neutrality as possible. The Furyk withdrew without protest. The Goran did not. They left with half their number wounded and the rest muttering promises of revenge. Elias left the bay astride Koro, heading for the forest. "We'll be here another day," he told Lutter. "Then we're gone." "To where?" Lutter had asked. The human smile was infuriatingly vague. "Home. With a friend." That night, Lutter couldn't sleep. The Grothack's image replayed in his mind, the lethal grace, the unshakable obedience to a man who had no claws, no armor, nothing but a calm voice and a bag of candy. It defied every law of predator-prey logic he knew. Perhaps that was the point. When dawn came, the forest edge was empty. No Grothack. No human. No trace. It would be almost a full year before Lutter saw Elias Carter again. And when he did, it was not on Vera 9. It was on a human colony world, in a place with a name that made his frills twitch in disbelief, Kingdom of Dragons. There were dozens of Grothack. Not one in chains. Not one in a cage. And humans, adults, children, whole families, were riding them. The shuttle descended through pale blue skies toward a sprawling complex that gleamed in the sun. Lutter's diplomatic escort had been silent for most of the trip, but now the younger official cleared his throat. "Envoy, are you certain this is a good use of your time?" Ludder's frills twitched. The council received multiple trade proposals from this enterprise. It would be negligent not to investigate. The escort muttered something under his breath that sounded suspiciously like suicide by tourism. Below, vast enclosures spread across green hills. Towers shaped like castle spires rose among domed habitats. Ludder's sensitive vision caught the glint of movement in the air, massive shapes with wide, leathery wings, banking and wheeling in coordinated arcs. Grothack. Dozens of them. The shuttle touched down on a landing pad marked with a stylized emblem, a winged serpent coiled around a human sword. A crowd of humans waited beyond the security gate, their faces bright with anticipation. Many wore helmets and harnesses. Others held bags of food or plush toys shaped like the creatures themselves. Ludder felt the scales along his spine prickle. The gate slid open and the smell hit him, sweet confections, cooked meats, and something else. The musky, metallic tang of apex predator. And then Elias Carter was there, striding forward in a leather flight jacket with that same infuriating smile. Behind him padded a grothack, its head held low enough to clear the archway, eyes bright and curious. Ludder. Elias spread his arms as though greeting an old friend. Welcome to Kingdom of Dragons. Ludder glanced warily at the beast. That is Koro, Elias said proudly. First one I ever rode. Still my partner. The grothack made a chuffing noise and nudged Elias's shoulder with its snout. The human chuckled and rubbed a spot just below its jaw. The escort took an involuntary step back. Ludder kept his stance rigid. You, have more of them? Oh, dozens, Elias replied. Come on. I'll show you. The tour was like nothing Ludder had experienced. They began in a training arena where young grothack, smaller but still lethal, were learning commands. Human trainers moved among them, giving hand signals and tossing small treats. The predators responded instantly, some crouching, some spreading their wings, others rolling onto their backs in what Ludder would have sworn was play behavior. They learn fast, Elias explained. And they bond even faster. Once they accept a human as part of their flight, that's it, they protect them for life. Ludder's throat worked. And if they do not accept? Elias's smile thinned. We make sure they do. Next was the aerial range. From a high observation platform, Ludder watched pairs of riders and grothack launch into the sky. The wing beats were thunderous, but the coordination was perfect. Humans guided the massive creatures with subtle touches of knee and hand, banking over the valley in wide, controlled arcs. The crowd on the platform cheered each maneuver. Children squealed with delight as a rider swooped low, the grothack's talons brushing the grass before it climbed again. Ludder couldn't help himself. This is dangerous. Elias grinned. Exactly. That's why it sells. They ended in the breeding grounds. Here the grothack were free within a massive enclosure, a landscape of cliffs, caves, and shallow lakes. Human caretakers moved among them without fear, delivering food or checking on nests. Ludder noted the number of eggs, at least 24. You are breeding them, Ludder said slowly. Of course, Elias replied. Demands through the roof. Every human colony wants a flight program now. This violates at least 7 council wildlife ordinances, Ludder said sharply. Elias just shrugged. We're humans. We're used to making new rules. Back in the visitor center, Ludder stood at a massive glass wall that overlooked the valley. Beyond it, grothack wheeled through the sky, sunlight catching on their scales. He could feel Elias watching him. You're wondering if this is sustainable, Elias said. I am wondering, Ludder replied carefully, how you convinced one of the galaxy's deadliest predators to let a child sit on its back. Elias's expression softened. It's not that complicated. You give them respect, boundaries, and something they like more than the taste of you. That's all. Ludder turned to face him fully. You realize the other species will see this as a threat. They already do, Elias said matter-of-factly. The Gorin tried to shut us down last month. We had words. Lutter suspected those words involved Koro. You've changed the balance, Lutter said. Predators used to be hunted. Now you're breeding them, selling rides. Elias cut him off with a shake of his head. I'm not selling weapons, Lutter. I'm selling wonder. And maybe, just maybe, I'm showing the galaxy that humans can do more than trade or fight. We can make friends with the things everyone else runs from. For a long moment, Lutter said nothing. The Grothack outside banked together, wings casting shifting shadows over the valley. Below, a new rider climbed into the saddle of a waiting beast, laughter ringing as the creature launched into the air. It was madness. And somehow, it was working. That night, in his guest quarters, Lutter drafted his preliminary report. The human enterprise known as Kingdom of Dragons is in clear violation of multiple interspecies wildlife statutes. However, the economic benefit to human colonies is significant. The Grothack population is increasing under human stewardship, with no current threat to native Varen villages. He paused, stylus hovering. Recommendation, Council review. And, personal observation, do not underestimate human capacity to alter predator behavior through bonding. The implications are far-reaching. He set the stylus down, staring out the window at the dark silhouette of Koro against the moonlit sky. In the morning, there was a knock on his door. Elias stood there, jacket unzipped, expression unusually serious. I'm glad you came, Lutter. There's something you need to see. What is it? Lutter asked. Proof, Elias said. That this isn't just a tourist trap. The air was crisp when they left the compound. Elias led Lutter along a narrow trail that wound away from the main resort. The Grothack Koro followed silently, his talons making soft impressions in the damp earth. Beyond the fence line, the terrain grew wild, tangled undergrowth, jagged rock outcrops, and a faint echo of rushing water. This isn't on the tour map, Lutter said, glancing back toward the distant spires of Kingdom of Dragons. It's not for tourists, Elias replied. It's for the council. They crested a ridge. Below lay a wide valley dotted with small, thatched structures. Smoke curled from cooking fires. Humanoid figures moved about, tending gardens and carrying baskets. Lutter's frills stiffened. These are Varen natives, he said. You relocated them here? Elias shook his head. No. This is their home. Their real one. Lutter frowned. Explain. Elias crouched, tracing a line in the dirt with a stick. The Grothack used to hunt across this whole region. That's why the council wanted them wiped out. But when I tracked Koro back on Vera 9, I realized something, he wasn't hunting here. Lutter's eyes narrowed. Why? He was guarding it. Elias drew a wide circle in the dirt. This valley is the only safe zone for kilometers. No Grothack comes within it. Not because they can't, but because they won't. Koro chuffed, as if in agreement. You're saying these predators protect the natives? Lutter asked, incredulous. Exactly. In exchange, the natives leave them tribute. Food, shiny stones, whatever the Grothack seem to like. It's a mutual thing, no contracts, no council interference. Just, trust. Lutter's mind raced. This was beyond unconventional. It was unheard of. And you've expanded it, he guessed. Elias nodded. I've been training captive-bred Grothack to recognize and guard designated safe zones. Not just here, other worlds, other apex species. It's working. They descended toward the village. The natives, slender, long-limbed beings with coppery skin, looked up as they approached. None screamed. None ran. Instead, they smiled, some raising their hands in greeting. Children darted forward, not to meet Elias, but to pat Koro's massive foreleg. One child, no older than 6 by human standards, pressed a bundle of bright flowers into the Grothack's clawed hand. Koro lowered his head and made a soft, rumbling purr. Lutter could only stare. In the village square, an elder approached. She was draped in woven fabrics dyed in the deep red of the forest leaves. She spoke in her own tongue, but Elias seemed to understand. He bowed slightly, replying in halting phrases. She says Koro's flight brought them a kill yesterday, Elias translated. A sky serpent that had been taking their goats. The elder placed her hand on the Grothack's snout, murmured something, and Koro closed his eyes in what looked like contentment. Lutter found his voice. The council will never believe this. That's why you're here, Elias said. So you can tell them yourself. They stayed until evening. Lutter watched the villagers move about their lives under the watchful gaze of Grothack perched on nearby cliffs. The predators didn't hide. They didn't threaten. They simply existed alongside the people, as much a part of the community as the huts or gardens. When the sun dipped low, painting the valley gold, Elias motioned for them to return. Koro crouched, letting Elias swing into the saddle. You can ride with me, Elias offered. Lutter hesitated. That would be unwise. Elias grinned. Trust me. The launch was like being shot from a weapon. Wind screamed past Lutter's face as Koro's wings caught the air. The valley shrank below, the villagers waving until they were specks. The flight was smoother than he expected, the Grothack adjusting with subtle shifts to keep them level. Lutter risked a glance sideways. Elias looked utterly at home, one hand resting on the ridge of scales, the other loose on the reins. Still think this is madness, he shouted over the wind. Yes. Lutter shouted back. But I understand it now. Elias laughed, and Koro banked toward the setting sun. They landed outside the compound after dark. Elias slid off, offering a hand to Lutter. So. Will you report what you saw? I will, Lutter said carefully. But you realize this will change things. Elias's smile faded. I'm counting on it. The next morning, Lutter transmitted a secure packet to the council. It contained no tourist footage, no marketing materials. Only his own recordings from the village, annotated with his observations. He emphasized the absence of predatory incidents within the safe zone and the cooperative relationship between species. He did not mention the feeling he'd had in the air, that moment when the fear drained away, replaced by something he had never associated with a Grothack before. Trust. By midday, Elias was gone. Koro's shadow passed once over the compound before vanishing into the clouds. No one seemed concerned. He'll be back, a human trainer told Lutter. They always come back. That night, under the alien stars, Lutter considered the possibilities. Apex predators turned guardians. Worlds once deemed uninhabitable made safe by tooth and claw, not by killing them, but by changing them. It was dangerous. It was reckless. And it might just work. The council chamber was silent as Lutter's report concluded. Representatives from 27 species sat in the tiered seats, their expressions ranging from intrigue to outright horror. The hollow display above the central dais showed still images from the village, children touching the Grothack, the elder with her hand on Koro's snout, predators perched like watchmen over the cliffs. When the hollow winked out, murmurs erupted. This is reckless, hissed the Authari delegate, her translucent frills flaring. Apex predators cannot be trusted. They have been trusted, countered the Falari representative, his feline eyes narrowing. And evidently with success. Herrick of the Goran stood from his seat, massive arms folded. The human violated a direct council extermination order. His success cost the lives of my mercenaries. This is not diplomacy, it is chaos. Lutter took a steadying breath. With respect, this is adaptation. The council ordered the threat removed. It was. By unconventional means, yes, but the native population is now safe. And the Grothack population is stable. Stable predators still kill, Herrick growled. Only outside the safe zones, Lutter replied evenly. By design. The argument spiraled. Some delegates were swayed by the economic potential. Already, trade from human colonies was spiking with demand for Grothack-related services. Others balked at the precedent. What would stop another species from attempting the same with their own deadly fauna? Finally, the speaker raised her voice. Enough. We will vote on whether to sanction the human program. A hush fell. Each delegate pressed their decision into the console before them. The result, 15 in favor, 11 against, 1 abstention. It passed. After the session, Lutter found himself intercepted in the corridor by a human aide. He's waiting for you, she said, handing him a slip of paper with coordinates. He almost crumpled it on principle. Then curiosity won. The location was a rooftop landing pad on the outskirts of the capital. The wind was stronger here, tugging at his robes. He was still adjusting his collar when the shadow fell across him. Koro landed with a thud that rattled the steel beneath Lutter's feet. Elias dismounted in one fluid motion. Heard it passed, he said, grin bright. Didn't think you'd pull it off. I didn't, Lutter replied. The council did. Semantics, Elias said, waving it off. Point is, we've got the green light. First step, expanding to 3 more worlds. Lutter stared at him. Do you ever stop? Nope. They walked to the edge of the pad, looking out over the sprawl of the capital. Below, speeders zipped between towers. Above, smaller craft darted through air lanes. And somewhere beyond the visible sky, the galaxy's apex predators were being trained to guard rather than destroy. You realize, Lutter said slowly, you've altered the balance of countless ecosystems. Changed the relationship between predator and prey on a fundamental level. That was the idea, Elias said. Besides, who says the old balance was the right one? Every biologist in the galaxy, Lutter muttered. Elias chuckled. Sometimes you've got to ignore the experts to do the impossible. Koro shifted behind them, lowering his head so one massive amber eye was level with Lutter. The envoy stiffened, but the Grothack didn't move. It just watched him. Tentatively, Lutter reached out. His fingers brushed warm scales, rough and patterned like obsidian overlaid with moss. Koro didn't flinch. If anything, he leaned in. Lutter pulled back. He remembers me. Of course, Elias said. You were part of the flight. I was, what? That day on Vera 9, Elias said with a smirk. When you didn't run. He noticed. Grothack don't forget. Lutter wasn't sure whether to feel honored or deeply unsettled. Why me? Lutter asked after a moment. Elias tilted his head. Because you're not like the rest of them. You see value in something before the rest of your council decides it's safe to admit it. That's rare. Lutter gave a dry huff. And dangerous. Exactly, Elias said, as though that proved his point. They spoke for nearly an hour. About expansion plans, about training protocols, about the inevitable backlash from species like the Goran. Elias seemed unconcerned. Once people see it, they get it, he said. Fear fades. Wonder sticks. As they talked, the sun dipped lower, painting the city gold. Shadows stretched long across the pad. Finally, Elias swung back into Koro's saddle. You'll come visit one of the new sites, he said, half command, half invitation. Lutter hesitated. If the council allows it. Elias grinned. If you want it, you'll find a way. Koro spread his wings. The downdraft sent Lutter's robes snapping. Then, with a single leap, they were airborne, rising into the blaze of sunset until they were nothing but a silhouette against the clouds. Months passed. Reports came in from the new sites, on a jungle world plagued by winged raptors, on a desert moon haunted by burrowing leviathans, even on a frozen planet where white-scaled drakes prowled the glaciers. In each case, the pattern held: the predators, once feared and hunted, learned to guard territories rather than attack the settlements within them. And in each case, humans were at the center of it. Not dominating, not breaking, but bonding. One night, Luther received a package. No sender listed, but the seal was unmistakably human. Inside was a small data chip. When he played it, the projection filled his study, a young Varen child, no more than 8, riding atop a juvenile grothack. The creature moved carefully, its talons placed with precision, its wings tucked close in the narrow village street. The child laughed, pure and unafraid. The clip ended with Elias's voice, slightly distorted by wind, "Told you. Wonder sticks." Luther sat for a long time after the projection faded. In the stillness, he realized something. The grothack weren't the real shift. Neither were the other predators humans were now taming across the galaxy. The shift was in perception. Predators were no longer only threats to be destroyed, they were potential allies. And the species that had made that leap, that had dared to trust tooth and claw, had been the one most of the galaxy had considered fragile, underpowered, and naive. Humans. The next council session was routine: trade disputes, border agreements. But when it adjourned, Luther didn't leave. He stood at the podium long after the chamber emptied, looking at the empty seats. In his mind, he saw the image of that child on the grothack. And for the first time, he wondered, not whether humans would change the galaxy, but how much of it they would reshape before the rest of the galaxy caught up. Far above, on some distant world, Elias Carter was probably grinning that infuriating grin. And somewhere, Koro's wings were beating against the wind.